Nothing got me amped up as a kid, quite like hearing the Challenger approaching sirens from Super Smash Bros. Melee. Defeat means playable. We all know the trope. To me, the unlockables that always felt the most impactful were the bosses. The struggle of losing over and over again doesn't just instill fear, but also a bit of admiration. You can't help but imagine a world where they were fighting on your side. I remember fighting Magus and Chrono Trigger, and then discovering later that he could actually join the party. You can imagine the hype I had to start unloading dark matter attacks on everything, since he had no problem making our lives hell with it when he was a boss battle. Lo and behold, dark matter, along with plenty of his other powerful spells, was mysteriously missing once he was a team member. My disappointment was immeasurable, because from my perspective, once again, the boss switching teams came at a hefty price.
If you desire my strength, you must pay my price.
It seems like with playable bosses, it's either nerf or nothing. Magus needs 5 million HP to pose a meaningful challenge for you, but imagine if he kept that HP stat after he started fighting with you. Any semblance of challenge would be gone. Whether it be through talk no jutsu or settling things with fists, the power of friendship can't bring a boss over to your side without nerfing them into the dirt. It's taught us to scoff at friendship, and it's always bothered me how it's been so overdone that it's almost become something to be ashamed of.
It's a power you once had. The power of love and friendship.
No, it's not! Stop embarrassing me! It's not what he just said!
There's a reason everyone rolls their eyes when friendship gets brought up in a story, which is a real shame.
I wouldn't be here if I'd had to do all of this by myself.
Too often we dismiss friendship, when in reality, something that can bring an adversary to your side is an incredibly motivational force. All of this is to say, when the power of friendship is done correctly, the most memorable boss encounters of them all are born. In Final Fantasy X, summoners embark on a pilgrimage across Spira to pray at all the temples of Yevon in their quest to defeat Sin. Sin is a powerful monster that wreaks havoc across the civilizations of Spira, and the only thing capable of destroying it is the final Aeon, which a summoner obtains by completing their pilgrimage. By defeating Sin with the final Aeon, delays Sin's return by 10 years before the cycle begins again.
But there's always a chance it won't come back this time.
In order to create the final Aeon, a summoner must sacrifice a loved one at the end of their pilgrimage. The Aeon created from this sacrifice is so tightly bonded to their summoner, they have a power strong enough to defeat Sin. What the church doesn't share with the rest of Spira is that Sin itself is actually a final Aeon. More specifically, he's the previous High Summoner's final Aeon.
Every Aeon that defeats it becomes Sin in its place.
Once Sin is defeated, the spirit inside of him possesses the final Aeon, kills the new High Summoner, and then spends the next decade rebuilding Sin's body.
You, Yevon, the Immortal, would only create Sin anew.
Are we all caught up so far? No? Well, this is a Final Fantasy game. I'm doing my best here, folks. Unfortunately, Sin doesn't join your party, as cool as that would be. But Sin isn't the only final Aeon we face as a boss fight in Final Fantasy X. During a water polo match in the city of Lucca, a group of fiends ambush the stadium at the climax of the final round of the tournament. Our party does their best to fight off the monsters and protect the spectators, but this early in the game we're still quite weak. Things turn in our favor when Maester Seymour Guado steps forwards and summons an Aeon that looks even more ferocious than the monsters assaulting the stadium. A hooked chain plunges into the depths of the earth and reels to the surface a creature of pure nightmares. This is Anima. Seymour himself proves himself to be a more than capable fighter, as there's a story beat a little after this blitzball match where he joins you as a temporary companion for a single fight. With him in tow, you make quick work of a Sin spawn that the entire party struggled to bring down only a moment before. Back when I first played this section and had control of Seymour, all I wanted to do was summon his Aeon and see what it was capable of outside of a cutscene. Unfortunately, I'd get my wish.
We will protect you not from anyone. Even a maester.
This can't be happening.
Much later in the game, we get to know the Maester a little bit better and find out he's not such a good guy after all. It turns out he had a little bit of a patricidal episode, which is how he got his promotion to Maester. When confronting him about his actions, he doesn't even try to deny it. And that's when we realize it's because he has no intention of letting us leave alive.
Feel my pain. Come, Anima!
When I first sat down to make this video, it wasn't a question of if I'd mention a Nippon Ichi Software game, but more of a question of which one. That's when I decided, why not all of them? The thing about these games is that in order to get a character to join you, you have to fight them first. An old friend of mine used to joke about how no one ever comes willingly in an NIS game, but that they all eventually do come along.
Prince, what are you doing recruiting an assassin?
Pretty much every character you fight as a boss in these games, you can expect to unlock as a playable character somewhere down the line. More recent entries realized that it wasn't fun nerfing the boss after going through the work to defeat them, but it took them a while to figure that out. Earlier games in the series handled things less gracefully. Makai Kingdom may be the worst offender that comes to mind, because after recruiting a boss, they usually start at level 1. The story of Makai Kingdom follows the badass overlord Zetta, who through his own impulsiveness, dooms his netherworld to destruction. In order to stop this destruction, he binds himself to a tome in which the prophecy of his demise was written.
Aha! I'll bind my soul to the damn book!
Why is that the answer?
Confined!
Like it or not, Zetta is going to be a book for the remainder of the game. And then some.
My netherworld, my castle, my brothers, even my own body.
With that said, in the tutorial of Makai Kingdom, you get an opportunity to play as Zetta in his original body. And let's just say he lives up to the title of Badass Overlord. Even when he's outnumbered, he single-handedly annihilates anyone that tries to get in his way.
Get ready!
Get ready! Damn!
Oh my god, they all went down!
There you go.
That was like a one-shot.
Yeah, that is power. As a player, we get a taste of power levels we can only dream of in this first battle. That's because once the game starts properly, Zetta becomes the book, and his all-powerful normal form disappears, taking all his attack power along with it.
Power or not, I can't fight in this form. But that's all worked out now.
Zetta as we knew him is gone, but much later in the game, under the right conditions, you have the option to make a wish to fight his normal form for yourself. By doing so, you get a chance to re-obtain him as a team member. His original body is possessed by Tyrant Overlord Ball, and upon defeating him, you can exercise Ball and get the original body back.
Am I really that gorgeous?
The big caveat here is that you unlock this fight at around level 300, and Zetta is still level 2000 like he was in the tutorial. The silver lining being that unlike in the tutorial where you had control of Zetta and subsequently gave him the first turn, you get to take the first turn for yourself instead. With the right team of characters, it's actually possible to whittle him down on round 1 before he even gets an attack in. If you don't get him down on the first turn, well, you saw what happened in the tutorial. Uh-oh. Just took out half my crew. Pick your moves carefully because Zetta is no joke, at least until you have him as a party member. Zetta acquired his empty, lifeless husk of a body. Like most unique character recruitments, once a part of the team in Makai Kingdom, Zetta's level gets reset to 1. I remember really hoping it wouldn't be the case since we had him in the party at level 2000 in the prologue, but I guess nothing can ever be easy.
Damn you for using such a convenient game mechanic!
What I always found funny about this interaction was just the fact we were capable of beating him in the first place ought to have shown we were worthy of his powers. I mean, if you ask me, game balance was a total non-issue in this case, especially considering the final boss is only level 85. He's level 1. That sounds about right. The good news is that even though boss characters' levels get reset in Makai Kingdom, they keep their stat growth from when you fought them. This, along with Zetta's insane aptitudes, make him a character with obscene potential if you're actually willing to sit down and level him up. We can't use Omega Drive, he doesn't have enough SP. It wouldn't be a Disgaea game if there wasn't a grind, right? Well, I guess this isn't a Disgaea game, but is there really a difference? It doesn't matter what game they're in. I will always love Prinnies. Zetta won't just outpace the other characters in your party, but all the other boss characters you can unlock alongside him. And he damn well better considering the effort you went into recruiting him in the first place. Only 1,998 levels to go. Makai Kingdom isn't the last we'll get to see of Zetta though. Far from it. As much like all the other NIS protagonists, he can't help himself from butting into all their other games in one form or another.
Set a beam!
Mr. Go Knuckles?
What do you expect? I wouldn't get a part unless I did this.
The main protagonist of Streets of Rage is a character named Axel Stone. He's a former cop and trained martial artist who quit the force in order to personally hunt down an evil organization known as the Syndicate. The Syndicate's meddling makes up for the plot of the Streets of Rage trilogy, and many strong boss fights guard the end of each level. Among the many, though, The penultimate boss of Streets of Rage 2 is the standout. Some would argue the Syndicate's leader's bodyguard Shiva, not that one, is the toughest boss of the entire game. He certainly earns the title of Axel's greatest rival, and his mastery of Kempo makes him a much more competent fighter than anyone you fought getting this far. With his defeat and his boss thereafter, the Syndicate is defeated once more, but as usual, not for good. The Syndicate continues their scheming to take over Wood Oak City, and in Streets of Rage 3, Axel and the crew return to once again protect their home. By the time Streets of Rage 3 came around, Shiva had earned enough notoriety among the fans of the game that they decided to bring him back as a boss fight in Chapter 1. Seeing the return of this iconic character was cool in its own right, but perhaps what fans were most excited about was that he was now a playable character. Kind of. By holding down the B button after defeating him in level 1, you would load into level 2 now playing as him. While initially this was really cool and exciting, it was quickly realized that some things were left to be desired. Playing as Shiva was not developed as a standard gameplay option and was limited to this secret unlock. Despite being one of the fastest and strongest characters, his moveset was rather limited. Since he was coded as an enemy instead of a player, he was actually missing a lot of utility that your normal player characters had. Most notably, Shiva wasn't programmed to pick up items, which, combined with his vanilla moveset, made him a lot less interesting to play. In this instance, it's difficult to blame the friendship nerf for what drove our boy's power level into the dirt. The reason being, he's not truly a good guy in Streets of Rage 3. Playing as Shiva in the third game is more of an Easter egg than anything, and due to his villainous role in the story, playing as him isn't even considered canon. For all we know, Shiva's holding himself back, not because of poor programming, but because he's still siding with the Syndicate. That said, one could argue the real reason he feels underwhelming in this game was simply because he wasn't fighting for the right reasons quite yet. After confronting Maester Seymour about his secret, the only option is to fight. This boss fight against Seymour is already tough in its own right, but what you don't realize is he's basically the mini-boss before the real battle. His spells hit harder than a lot of what you've encountered thus far, but once you realize he cycles between the 4 elements in a set order, you can nullify most of his damage each turn. Where the real problem arises is when you get him down to half health. That's when he calls forth his Aeon. Thus far, most summons the summoner obtains on their pilgrimage have had some degree of elemental affinity. Since this is a Final Fantasy game, Ifrit is fire, Shiva is gonna be ice, you get the idea. Final Fantasy X pares down the elements to only 4, with fire, blizzard, thunder, and water. But even with the absence of a dark element, upon first glance, you can just tell that Anima is meant to be one. Compared to Seymour's measly 6,000 health, Anima's 18,000 is no joke. Her main attack is a move called Pain, a typeless magic attack that inflicts Death Strike on each hit. Assuming you had a party member strong enough to survive a round of Pain, chances are they're going down to the death status it inflicts regardless. That's not even touching on the Aeon's Overdrive, which aside from being basically a guaranteed wipe for the party in this encounter, is an attack animation that gave me nightmares as a child. Anima is a force of nature, and when you finally take her down, you're rewarded with Seymour's health restoring back up to full and having to whittle him down one more time.
That power that defeated Anima, it will be mine!
We won't see Anima again for a very long time, long after the reveal of Sin's true identity, and even the second and third battle with Maester Seymour. Some players might even make it to the end of the game and not see her at all. That's because she's a hidden Aeon. You may recall that summoners pray at all the temples of Yevon and must collect all the summons before they can get the final Aeon. Anima is not found at any of these temples along our journey, but at the end of the pilgrimage, on our way to unlock the final summoning, we find this.
I don't want you to become a thing!
There is no other way. Layers me and defeat Sin. Only then will the people accept you.
The bond between the final Aeon and the summoner must be strong in order to defeat Sin.
The bond between husband and wife, mother and child, or between friends. If that bond is strong enough, its light will conquer Sin.
And having that bond with her son, Seymour's mother sacrificed herself in order to give him that power.
I don't have much time left.
Hey, wasn't that...
Seymour?
At the very bottom corner of the map, in a forgotten area only briefly visited in the prologue of the game, lies the Temple of Bosch, and inside is the faith of an Aeon.
You are Maester Seymour's mother. So you know, yet still you seek my aid.
At a young age, Seymour took the pilgrimage to find the acceptance of the people of Spira, but sacrificing his mother to gain the strength to fight sin corrupted him. Rather than defeat sin, he became obsessed with becoming it himself.
He was not satisfied with my Aeon. He wanted more power.
Wanting to finally put an end to her son's hatred, she offers her Aeon to Yuna and her party in the hopes that they'll use her power to defeat Seymour for good. Even though Seymour's mother and Yuna do not share a bond strong enough to defeat Sin single-handedly, Anima is still a final Aeon nonetheless, and possesses colossal power.
Come, Summoner. I will bestow you with my power. The Dark Aeon, Anima. Destroy Sin and my son's obsession with it.
She far outclasses any of the other Aeons we've obtained until this point in the journey, and arguably is the best one in the entire game. Sorry, Yojimbo fans. Usually when the friendship nerf manifests, it would slash a character like Anima to ribbons for the sake of balance. That said, try not to forget that we encountered her as a boss fight almost 25 hours of gameplay ago. What was once a boss is more than comfortably a summon by this stage of the game. To add to that, Anima can go even further beyond that power in the hands of Yuna. Friendship doesn't nerf her, but gives her the strength to grow and level far beyond what Seymour was capable of using her for.
You would oppose me as well? So be it.
Even able to stand against him at the end of the world. It's not until Zetta starts infiltrating the Disgaea series that we actually get to see what he's capable of in his book form. In his own game, the book acted as a base panel for units in battle, but it would have been a very different game had he still been able to fight. This gets revealed in his cameo appearances. He shows up as a book in both Disgaea 2 and 3, but still has access to moves like Zetta Beam and Badass Overdrive. It isn't until Disgaea 4 that he finally makes a return in human form. In 4, he acts as a post-game super boss, and not a pushover.
I'm the most powerful overlord in the universe!
Disgaea post-games are notorious for their steep level climb, and Zetta comes in towards the top of that curve. He's had a bit of a power spike since his Makai Kingdom days, and comes in swinging at a whopping level 4,000. He's got all the moves we come to expect from him, but stat-wise, he's one of the tougher fights by a mile. After defeating him, he agrees to join the party, even though no one asked him to.
This time?
Yes, I accept you as my rival.
This time, he doesn't join the team as a measly level 1 though. Oh no, he comes in just as he did during the battle with him. Level 4,000 in all. Maybe he dodged the friendship nerf because we didn't actually befriend him. He just kind of forced his way into the group.
What? You're joining us?
My personal favorite part of Zetta has to be the way the character's been built up through all of his different appearances. His legacy was established back in 2005 with the initial release of Makai Kingdom, but we didn't get to play as him properly until Disgaea 4's release 6 years later.
It seems like the most powerful overlord in the universe has a lot of time on his hands.
Even the level 1 version we got in Makai Kingdom wasn't the real Zetta, but the husk of his body since his soul was still trapped in that damn book. As of Disgaea 4, Zetta's the third strongest character in universe, and the two ranking above him aren't even playable. But I think what's most satisfying about his appearance in this game is that it finally does justice to what we all experienced back in the tutorial of the original.
I'm a freaking overlord, you idiot! The strongest one in the entire cosmos!
I love that the friendship nerf just doesn't exist for Zetta anymore. Each iteration of Zetta keeps getting stronger than the last. And by the time you win him over in battle and earn his love, friendship, respect, or whatever, he comes packing just as much heat as he used in the battle against you. No matter what game it is, I'm always hyped to see Zetta make an appearance. And it's because in one form or another, it's safe to assume he'll always be the strongest overlord. Although Shiva's debut as a playable character was a bit janky in Streets of Rage 3, everything changed with the release of Streets of Rage 4 in 2020. With the Syndicate reborn as the Y Syndicate, they're back and causing trouble once again. Axel and the gang squad up to hunt down the new heads of the organization and learn from an art thief that they can find some answers from the new Grandmaster of Chinatown. It's been well over a decade, but the streets are still filled with rage. Nice, Taryn, that was so good. Oh, you were so good. The gang fights their way through Chinatown, and lo and behold, Shiva makes a return as the boss of the level, and coincidentally, the aforementioned Grandmaster. Oh, there he is! A fight ensues as the group assumes he's still a member of the Syndicate, but once the dust settles, he reveals he's turned over a new leaf. He's embraced a new life in Buddhist faith and lives crime-free, teaching martial arts in his new dojo. Honestly, good for him. He points the group in the direction of the real villains, and their tower with the giant Y on it. They're at the tower, too.
Ah! There's a giant Y on the tower.
Maybe that should have been obvious from the start, but oh well. At the very least, the heroes and Shiva end their confrontation on good terms, and thus, decades of rivalry dissolve into a distant friendship. Till we meet again, brother. All of that said, with the release of the Mr. X DLC, Shiva's story doesn't end here. According to his bio, many of Shiva's students left his dojo after getting mixed up with the Y Syndicate's affairs. The drive to fight for and protect his pupils is the fuel he needs to oppose his former organization and use his powers for good. With that, Shiva is now a fully playable character. No B-button holding nonsense this time around. It's all canon, baby.
Still is a badass.
It's Shiva, Ted. So has the power of friendship nerfed Shiva compared to his boss counterpart? Not in Streets of Rage 4, it didn't. Some could say Shiva plays like he's in the wrong game with all the stuff he can do. As a boss, he's actually somewhat limited with only his palm and kick attack, well equipped with a slow basic combo suited for a mid-game boss. As it turns out, he was in fact holding back against you because he has some nasty tools in his arsenal. He can quite literally juggle people and air combo them until there's nothing left on the battlefield. Half the stuff he does as a playable character doesn't even exist when you fight him as a boss, and thank God for that. Maybe Shiva realized that our attacking him was a simple misunderstanding, and he didn't want to tear us to ribbons with his spirit dance before we could all clear things up.
Oh God.
That's neither here nor there, but you know what is still here? Shiva still can't use items.
I don't need weapons. I am the weapon.
But even that's better. They've baked the bug from Streets of Rage 3 right into the lore now, and Shiva has adopted the moniker of the living weapon.
I don't need weapons.
You are under arrest.
You are under arrest.
He chooses to only fight barehanded, but that doesn't mean weapons are useless. Far from it.
Ooh, more weapons for me.
When the player attempts to pick something up as Shiva, he'll throw them ahead of him instead. Additionally, when something's tossed his way, by pushing the grab button, he can deflect it straight back at the enemy. My guy can't use weapons. That's like one of his things. Like, he just immediately throws them pretty much. Streets of Rage 4 Shiva has got to be the biggest glow up from boss to playable that I can put pen to paper for. Forget about the friendship nerf, because here, friendship is a massive buff. As prolific as the friendship nerf can be, the exceptions to the rule are always the fun part in my opinion. There are a litany of other such examples, like Virgil in Devil May Cry, or Jetstream Sam in Metal Gear Rising.
Mind if I got in?
Both characters remain powerful and fun to play, probably even stronger than they were when you fought them as a boss encounter. They got the two of us scratching our heads because with all these exceptions, you start to wonder if the meme even holds up.
I'm more than capable of handling this on my own.
The existence of all these examples really just shines a brighter light on the trope as a whole. Whether it's friendship or some other motivation that brings the boss to your side, it's undeniable the most memorable bosses are the ones that fight for you after fighting against you.
I'm not here for the world. I'm here for myself.
I guess as the saying goes, the exception confirms the rule. It's how Shiva found his true purpose when he started fighting out of compassion instead of greed. He discovered his true strength while defending others and became their living weapon. Although Zetta's strength has ricocheted over the years, he never loses who he is, whether that's an all-powerful demon or an old leather-bound book. The title of Badass Overlord is always somewhere rooted in his DNA. Perhaps the best illustration of the power of friendship comes about from the final showdown with Shin.
The final showdown with Shin.
If used as intended, Anima would be able to defeat Sin, become it, and consequently, Sin would return after 10 years pass. However, our party is able to destroy Sin for good and bring about a permanent peace and an eternal calm, all thanks to our Aeons and their sacrifices. Hopefully, the next time someone starts spouting off about friendship, you'll think of this video before you roll your eyes. I'm not here to tell you the trope isn't overdone or that some of these moments aren't a little bit cliche. They totally are. All I'm saying is it takes an impressive force to make a boss switch allegiances.
What form of power is this?
When you unlock the next boss as a playable character and it's done right, if nothing else, I hope you remember just how powerful friendship can be. Wait, I almost forgot. Before you leave, I have dire news for all of you. Terran's being held hostage, and the only way to free her is by following us on Twitch and joining our Discord server. You can find links in the description down below. With your help, we can rescue Terran and make her play more games. On another note, if you've made it this far, I'd like to extend a personal thank you for watching. We'll see you all again soon.